Hello, and welcome to this episode of the K&Co Tech Pod. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co. And today I'm joined by Matt Clark, who's the CEO and President of Corcentric. And our conversation today is going to be centered on how CFOs can remove friction in B2B commerce, help reduce the cost of doing business, and also helping manage control costs. And that's what we like to affectionately call the ultimate challenge. Hey, Matt, it's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Shelly.
Absolutely. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. So that ultimate challenge business. This is part of really just about any digital transformation journey, which is to me, and it's always been, about the combination, the magic combination of people, processes, and technology, which is exactly what we're talking about here. And this magic combination can be a significant driver of business growth and agility, and that's pretty much what every organization seeks. So let's get real, though. Back office tasks like accounts payable, accounts receivable, just saying those things make me kind of want to groan because they are they are sometimes such arduous parts of doing business. And I know that you're laughing, Matt, but our audience certainly knows what I mean, right? So, but these things include paper checks and invoices that need scanning and procurement and the million little details that are a part of procurement operations. And these are an onerous but critical part of business operations. The reality, however, though, is that today these tasks don't need to be quite so challenging, and even more compelling to me about thinking about this transformation is that by optimizing cost, organizations can position themselves to leverage what I think can be a pretty significant competitive advantage. They can spur growth, innovation, and even business resilience. So, and the icing on the cake there is that by embracing this kind of transformation initiative, you can also make employees and customers happy in the process. So to me, that's really a winning combination. So with that background, Matt, let's dive in. You ready?
Sounds good.
All right. So we're in an age where CFOs and finance and procurement pros are tasked with doing more with less. And I know that you and your team are elbows deep in all things back office and procurement. I think that, I think I noticed that Corcentric processes something like 20 plus million transactions annually and more than 150 billion in spend that's processed. Those are no small numbers. So can you share a bit with me about the trends that you're seeing play out across the industry, Matt?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you really touched on one of those, which is just kind of the recognition of, what organizations need to do from a people, process, and technology perspective to get the outcomes that they've struggled to get historically. And so I see a really large trend in the changing role of the CFO. So the CFO role, in my view, and what I've seen in the marketplace, has evolved quite significantly in the last few years. And really, CFOs are being tasked with becoming that driver of organizational growth and strategic initiatives, and especially strategic initiatives around finance, procurement, and technology, and really are becoming the kind of leaders from a digital transformation perspective. So where historically, maybe digital transformation fell with an IT leader, a CIO, a CTO, what we're seeing now is that really is falling at the feet of the CFO. And I think it's for some very specific reasons. I think the missteps of the past, we'll call them, have led to this, where it's been, attacking acute problems with acute solutions and really being kind of reactive versus proactive. And what that's manifested itself into is, companies that have, engaged with solution providers against this entire spectrum of finance and procurement, have point solutions that they're, taking the burden of stitching together from a process flow and a data flow continuity perspective. And I think the realization has taken place in the marketplace that is not the way to achieve in quick fashion what these organizations are looking to achieve and help them deal with the challenges of today. So it's really this, kind of combination of the challenging macroeconomic conditions, the recognition that solving, acute problems with acute solutions is not the way to address this. And so I feel like, this role change for the CFO is a direct result of that, and leading to organizations taking a much more holistic view from a people, process, and technology perspective to say, what is that right combination of those three elements that are going to get us further fastest?
I've spent, in addition to being a tech analyst, I've spent the vast part of my career as a marketing brand strategist. And a lot of my work has been in working alongside my enterprise customers as they are navigating their digital transformation journeys. And I think one of the key things that I think is so important here is that, that finding and working with trusted vendor partners and whether it's for procurement and payment solutions, back office solutions and that sort of thing, or something else, but when you're working with a trusted vendor partner who can bring best in class technology solutions, experience, expertise that they bring from relationships with other customers, it shortens the learning curve, it shortens the ROI part of the equation. And I think that, what's important to me, and I will also say that, I'm old enough to have, started out at the bottom of a career ladder and navigated my way up. And as a leader today, what I want to spend my time doing, I want to spend my time doing the things that bring deep core value to the business. I don't want to be messing with little details or, those things that I groaned about early in the conversation. So I think really the beauty of the right technology solutions and the right vendor partnerships mean that organizations and leaders within organizations can focus on those core competencies and then better serve their end customers. I'm not thinking you would disagree with me on that one.
No, I wouldn't disagree at all. And I would, I'd build on that actually to say that, I think the trust is a huge part of it. But one of the things you touched on was just kind of having that ability, we're out there in the marketplace, we're seeing what's working and probably more importantly, what's not working for companies that are trying to address the same challenges. And if you're sitting within a particular company, you don't have that kind of broader view of what's out there in the marketplace, what's real and what's not, and what is going to get them, to the outcomes that they're seeking. And I think the other angle there is also something that you had touched on, which is, when companies are looking at, tackling these challenges, often what we're talking to companies about is, let's be real about what your core competencies are as a business. So if you're a manufacturing company, your core competency is manufacturing whatever products you create and you build. Some of this back office, the AP, the AR, the procurement stuff, it's almost viewed within organizations as somewhat of a necessary evil. And so when things are viewed as kind of a necessary evil, it's like, oh, well, it is what it is. I guess we just have to live with it. And so part of that journey is basically getting those companies and those leaders to step outside and say, this isn't a core competency for us, but it is for a solution provider like Corcentric. How can we marry our two, efforts together to have folks that, view, things like invoice processing and procurement and AR as a core competency to be applied to our business so that we can, again, get further faster.
Yeah, I agree. And I think to me, that's one of the big benefits of the evolution of tech solutions that we've seen over the course of the last decade plus is that, you don't have, no longer do you have to, have a business that approach things with a siloed mindset and that we have to build and do everything ourselves. And, and I was having this conversation with some engineers recently, and they were talking about, let's get real. The reality of it is that we're engineers. We like to build stuff. But you know what we're realizing is that sometimes building it ourselves is actually not the best solution. So I think some of that plays a role in here too. So Matt, I'd love to know a little bit more about the industries that Corcentric serves.
Yeah, so I'd say from a broader perspective, as you can imagine, we're sitting in the middle of B2B commerce, and so we always say around our company here, kind of the more complex, the messier, the better. There's a bigger opportunity to make really step change impacts to our customers. So some of the industries where you see that, kind of those kind of dynamics, high volume number of trading partners, high volume numbers of transactions, a lot of complexity around how, a buyer and a seller want to transact from a purchase order invoice perspective, but also from a payment timing and a payment modality perspective. So, where we have seen, some of those conditions, existing would be, our heritage was in transportation and logistics. We really created a two-sided network in that industry. And then we took a lot of those principles and started to look to other industries that looked a lot like transportation and logistics from that kind of complexity perspective. So a natural adjacency from a kind of manufacturing and distribution perspective.
Sure.
Certainly, as probably everybody knows, a lot of complexity and a lot of room for improvement in healthcare and pharmaceutical space. And then one that might not be top of mind for folks from kind of a B2B commerce perspective is the food and beverage sector. So that's anywhere from distribution efforts in the food and beverage sector, but also things like quick serve restaurants where you have lots of geographically spread out locations, lots of trading partners in terms of who they're buying their goods and services from. And so again, coming into these industries, establishing value on both sides, these are some of the industries where we've seen ourselves be able to make kind of the biggest impacts.
Awesome. None of this surprised me except food and beverage. So I appreciate that explanation. So, I know that you're out there, having conversations, whether it's internally with your customers, with prospective customers, but I know that you really have your finger on the pulse of what challenges your customers, what are the biggest challenges your customers are facing today. Will you share some of those challenges with me?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, the challenges are much higher pitched in today's environment. And, it's probably self-evident with some of the kind of macro conditions that are being faced on a daily basis in any kind of industry or sector. And some of those, bigger themes would be around, capital strategy and, how people are adjusting and adapting to a different interest rate environment that we've been used to in the recent history. Adjusting and managing around things like inflation. And then there's some other things in terms of kind of resource challenges. If you think about some of the, back office areas that we impact, pretty much on a dime globally, we went from, a very kind of, traditionally office-based environment for those types of resources. And then all of a sudden companies had, hundreds or thousands of micro offices all over the place when things shifted more to kind of a remote work situation. And that creates a lot of challenges in terms of, retention of employees, the growth and development of employees, but just kind of the day-to-day execution of tasks. So, really, those are some of the bigger, more kind of, macro challenges that are being faced by businesses. And then when you kind of double click inside of that, a lot of discussion and a lot of talk around, data protection, data continuity, data privacy, tons going on globally around, compliance and different rules and regulations that are being rolled out on a global basis.
Yeah.
So those things are all, large challenges for companies, not just securing your data, not just, being compliant, but being able to take your data and turn it into information. It's almost become a situation where, as a society, we're almost in data overload and we have more data than we know what to do with it. And so that ability to take data and turn it into information is a really large challenge for companies to tackle.
I just finished a research study on that very topic, and that's one of the most pressing problems that people have is, we are inundated by data, and being able to take that data and glean insights from it that can help drive business decisions, that's on everybody's radar screens these days. So I'm not surprised by that. So talk with me a little bit about some of the ways that you and the team at Corcentric are helping navigate these challenges.
Yeah, great question. So I think, the way we've kind of looked at things is, part of our whole kind of mission statement as a company is really, a desire to meet our customers where they're at, in this very complex world we're living in, especially in this complex kind of B2B commerce world we're living in. A cookie cutter approach doesn't work. A one size fits all approach doesn't work. But, looking at it from a kind of tailor-made solution design mindset, to really serve the customer's needs, both now and in the future. And I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle here. It's, in a lot of cases we're, trying to solve for the here and now, which is absolutely important. And if something's being surfaced as an urgent need and an urgent challenge that needs to be addressed, certainly we want to work hand in hand with our customers to do that, but we also want to be keeping one eye on the horizon and on the future and say, let's make sure the decisions that we're making today don't put us in a box that's not going to allow us to continue to, grow and evolve and optimize down the road. So it's that concept of, not taking that cookie cutter approach, meeting our customers where we're at, addressing the here and now, but then keeping an eye on the future. And then the other thing I would point out that we view as part of our special sauce is really kind of the people element to it. So certainly our charge is to deliver great technology and software solutions to our customers to support the key workflows that we're trying to impact, but also complementing that with managed and advisory services so that we can help augment and supplement what our customers doing themselves, but also so that we can get speed to value quicker. And that's really what our goal is. We want to make sure that we are setting up a situation where our customers are achieving that value and that ROI as quickly as they possibly can, and often see where, folks just take kind of a software only mindset. It's okay, this software, once I implement it, it's going to solve all my problems, but there's typically kind of an underappreciation for some of the kind of, people elements and change management elements that surround, making these step change improvements to what these companies are doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Well, I'm smiling because I've walked this path so many times over the course of my career. And, I am all in on the services component of any offering. And I have made decisions about expensive additions to a tech stack and, made those decisions only to realize, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have to hire a consultant to help me deploy this because I don't have anybody internally who has this skill set. Right. And that's often not a part of the conversation that you have with a vendor. So I'm always I'm never going to make a purchase without having a conversation about what kind of support can I expect, what kind of managed services can I raise my hand and opt in for? And, the reality of it is that you touched on it. Time to value is so important. And, fooling around trying to figure this out myself when I'm not an expert at this technology is not the path that I want to take. So I really like that that's an important part of your solution offerings. I think that's really important. So I mentioned earlier that I believe that embracing cost optimization and empowering that frictionless B2B commerce that we've been talking about can actually, I truly believe it can be a significant competitive advantage for organizations. Do you see that happening across the industries and the customers that you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think see it from a couple different dimensions. I'd say, one of the things we often talk to customers about is, don't be a victim of your success. And what does that mean? So when companies are, growing and scaling and they're really focused typically, and rightfully so, focused on, how we're going to grow our business, how we're going to grow it faster and at a higher pitch. But often what happens is companies wait way too long to do the things around the processes we're talking about here today to be able to efficiently and effectively scale. And so they find themselves, as I mentioned before, becoming a victim of their own success or not being able to deal with the challenges that come with growth and scaling. So the companies that are thinking not about where they are today, but about where they want to be, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 to 5 years from now, gives that right mindset to say, yeah, we might be getting by today with some of our back office processes, with some of our payment strategies, whether they're how we're getting paid or how we're paying our suppliers. But to map that out and to look again over the horizon and say, what is this going to look like when we're twice the size as we are today and starting to move in that direction? Doesn't have to happen overnight. But where I see, it be a competitive advantage is really the companies that are thinking in that fashion, are able to grow and scale in an efficient and effective manner where they're not, having to add, expense base, add to the expense base in the same way that they're adding to the revenue base.
Right.
I say another real kind of competitive advantage from embracing, this frictionless B2B commerce comes from, just capital strategy. How much of your capital, your working capital is locked up in your AP and your AR processes? What is that manifesting itself in terms of your ability to predictably understand what your cash flow position is so that you can make strategic moves based off of predictability around, cash flow outcomes and working capital outcomes. And so those are where you see really, really big advantages, competitive advantages being realized, where companies, you take a supplier, for example, that might be leveraging our AR solution, where they know with 100% predictability when they're going to get paid. They can now earmark their AR dollars, knowing when they're going to come in and hit their bank account, and start to make strategic investments. If you're a manufacturing company and you're trying to build a new manufacturing plant, can you leverage freed up AR and more predictability around your AR as a piece of your capital strategy, so that you're not having to rely on some of the high interest capital instruments that are out there in the world today. So that becomes an extremely competitive advantage when it comes to your capital strategy and how you can deploy that capital in a more strategic fashion.
Well, and I think the way that I look at it sometimes is that I know many CFOs, and sometimes it can be a little bit, it can feel like you're on an island. And I think that when I hear you talking about some of the capabilities and the services that you provide, is some of what comes to mind is that I kind of feel like I have somebody as a CFO to walk this journey with me, and I look at your strategic advisory services as a little bit like that. What do you think about that?
That's a great way to took the words right out of my mouth. That's a great way to think about it. Walking that journey with you, and that journey starts even before our customers are customers. It's really when they're they're prospects, and we're working on shaping what an engagement could look like. And we get our advisory services involved very early in the process to really say, let's diagnose before we prescribe. Let's not come in with some preconceived notion about what's going to move the needle most with this particular scenario. Going back to meeting our customers where we're at. So from the very beginning of that journey, to say, okay, let's diagnose before we prescribe. Let's put forth our recommendations that are based on best practices and based on experiences we've had with other customers of ours. And it continues through that life cycle. So once we get into implementation, let's make sure we're managing change management in a way that's going to allow the customer to get that speed to value. And then even after they're up and running on our solution, staying attached to that customer through that journey to say, okay, make sure you're getting the value that you intended to get out of the solution that you originally engaged with us on. But then, okay, now that we've solved for that pain point or that challenge or that optimization effort, what's the next thing that we can sequence here that'll continue moving you in that direction to get to be, best in class across the board?
So it's a very consultative arrangement. I like that. And, I will say one of the things that I've always told my clients over the years is that I'm in the business of winning. And so if I come into our relationship and sell you something just for the sake of selling you something, that's not winning. What is winning, however, is, as you said, if we work together to diagnose the challenges and the problems and come up with the solution or solutions that make sense, and the advisory that is part of that, and all of that sort of thing, together we're on this journey. And together we win. Because if I sell you something to sell you something and you don't realize some amazing benefits from it, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to sell that kind of stuff. So I like hearing this.
Yeah, and it's something that we feel, very strongly about. And I'd say one more thing I'd add to that is just always thinking with that end in mind. Again, you might not action everything that's going to get you to that, that utopian state, that North Star that you're setting for yourselves, and that we can work with you to set for yourselves. But always thinking with that end in mind and saying, okay, what is it we're doing, and how is this getting us, further, faster towards that end goal that we've set out to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to know, Matt, about any customer use cases that you might be willing to share with me that would help illustrate some of the results that Corcentric clients are seeing.
Yeah, I think touching on kind of three use cases that kind of span a good bit of what we do and how we engage with our customers, would be helpful, kind of color for folks. So, I'd start on our AR solution. So again, that solution is really all about a turnkey solution that allows companies to really optimize their entire AR world, from the receipt of purchase orders to the invoices that go out to their customers, to how payment timing and payment modality is managed. And what you get in the AR space today is if a company has 1,000 customers, you might have 1,000 different ways in which those customers want to submit orders to you, get invoiced, pay. So you get this level of complexity that's just unsustainable, I guess is what I would call it. And so, we've worked with a company in the manufacturer, a large, tire manufacturer that was really looking to solve for that problem there. And we sit between them and their very diverse customer base, different sizes, different levels of sophistication, and really turnkey a solution where we're able to, again, cover that entire AR lifecycle in a way that's better than they've been able to historically, managing it on their own and generating guaranteed outcomes for them where they're able to fix, DSO to a certain day and say, okay, if my payment terms are 30 days, I'm going to get paid on day 30 by Corcentric on time, every time without deduction. Corcentric's going to swivel chair and figure out all the noise on the other side of my ecosystem here, how my customers need to be transacting with us, how they're going to pay, both from a timing and modality perspective. And so been a total game changer for this, tire manufacturer in the way that they're able to manage their strategic accounts. And these are large strategic customers. Think like FedEx, Walmart, Amazon, have very complex processes when it comes to doing business with them. And we basically create that easy button for our customers with those predictable outcomes. And with this particular customer in a more specific sense of being able to remove all that friction and give them the predictable outcomes that our AR solution, delivers. Flip it to the other side of the equation, working with a very large energy company around all of their activity with their supply base. So you're now flipping it to the other side of the equation from a B2B commerce perspective and saying, how can we optimize how you're paying your suppliers? So 3,700 active suppliers that this company has to deal with on a regular basis, almost 540 million of spend in their spend portfolio that's been shifted to a revenue generating payment construct, a virtual card payment construct that not only gives them efficiency, but also allows them to generate real dollars from their AP activity. So big story there around scale, efficiency, and positive outcomes for a very large energy company. And then the last one I'll touch on is a kind of leading chemical distributor here in the US. And really what we've done for them is address the entire buy side life cycle in terms of giving them the technology, the people, and the payment capabilities to optimize that. So, being able to help them better manage $1 billion of global indirect spend, delivering, double-digit millions of dollars of savings from doing that, enabling, and this starts at the very front end of their kind of source to pay process from, sourcing to procurement all the way through to AP, where we're executing payments to their suppliers. So a full end-to-end solution with technology, managed and advisory services wrapped around it, and then our unique and differentiated payments solutions on the back end, getting them, to a place they never dreamed they could get to when they were trying to manage this on their own.
Oh, I think that sounds like music to my ears. Well, Matt, we can't have a conversation today about anything without talking about AI. And I think that earlier this year, Corcentric added some generative AI capabilities to your managed accounts, payable invoice processing. Talk with me a little bit about that, if you would, and what kind of results you're seeing thus far.
Yeah, so just broadly from an AI strategy perspective, we're really looking at it, in kind of two dimensions. One is, how can we, leverage AI, leverage RPA, machine learning to deliver value directly to our customers through our solutions, but also because we have a managed services component of what we do around our solutions, how can we make our own managed services more efficient and effective from, an AI perspective and leveraging, latest and greatest technologies. And what you touched on there in terms of from a kind of AP invoice processing really kind of checks both of those boxes in terms of being able to take, maybe invoices that are coming in either via still snail mail, believe it or not, or through, PDF images of invoices, and take that data and as efficiently as possible, or take those images and as efficiently as possible, extract the metadata and digitize them at the earliest stage possible for the maximum amount of efficiency and cost savings. And so absent an AI solution, you're looking at, a situation where, it's a pretty human intensive process to do that data extraction. And, we've built, our own proprietary tool around leveraging AI to be able to, replace human interaction with, the ability to digitize invoices in a very effective and efficient manner, both for our customers as well as for ourselves from a managed services perspective. We've also released products around, natural language processing. So the ability for customers to simply go into whatever their kind of business, platform is, whether that be Teams or any of the other solutions that are out there, and simply in natural language, key in prompts like, hey, what was my spend with this vendor in the last 3 months, and not even having to log into our solution, but our solution delivering, immediate responses to kind of natural language inquiries. And then extending, what we're doing around a lot of the compliance initiatives that are coming down the pike globally. The importance of being able to not only digitize invoices, whether they be AR or AP invoices, in an effective and efficient manner, but being able to make sure that that data is being run through the right tools to say, this invoice is compliant and it's ready to be either sent or received, or it's not and something needs to be addressed, but doing that in a way that's very AI driven versus, again, leaning on, kind of human interaction to do that.
Well, and it adds so much value across the board. And, talking about, the speed by which many of these things can be processed. And I think the reality of it is, as we look at our internal teams, what we're now relying on AI solutions to do are parts of jobs that people didn't really love anyway,
That's right.
and so
Yeah.
that way we can kind of redirect their efforts on tasks that are not only more interesting, infinitely more interesting, but that add deeper value to the business. And so I think that's a win all the way across the board.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, both
Yeah,
internally and externally with our customers. Is like,
absolutely.
they say, where do we go first? When it comes to looking at how we can leverage AI, and I say, what are the most like, what are the tasks that people
Hate the
hate
most.
doing the most, that are the least kind of like value accretive, and that's
Yeah,
where you need to start, right? And to your point,
absolutely.
it's not always about saying, okay, if we implement this solution, we're going to be able to get rid of this many heads. Certainly, there's
Right.
situations where that's the case, but as important is saying, how can we reallocate these resources to higher value
Yeah.
tasks that are going to deliver more value to the enterprise?
Yeah. That's what it's all about. Well, Matt, as we wrap the show, I'm going to ask you two final questions. The first, what differentiates Corcentric from its competitors in the market?
Yeah, so I think we've touched on some of that throughout, but just to put kind of a finer point on it, I think it's the way in which we always view our secret sauce as that way in which we combine the people, the process, and the technology,
Yeah.
and deploy that to both sides of B2B. So in a lot of cases, solution providers are playing on one side or the other, the buy side or the sell side, and maybe they're only addressing a sliver of that life cycle. So having workflows that support the complete life cycle of procurement, AP, and AR on the in the construct of B2B commerce is a big differentiator. And then taking that platform and that network effect and applying the people and the processes around it to get maximum value as quickly as possible, and staying with those customers throughout that journey. I think that's another point that we touched on earlier. Not just doing a drive-by where we're just dropping a piece of technology in your lap and we're on to the next
Yeah.
one. Staying with that customer through that journey and making sure that every step along the way we're moving in the direction that we both locked arms on moving in terms of getting to that best-in-class state.
Yeah, I like it. My second and final question: what one piece of advice do you have for CFOs, finance, and procurement pros who are looking to, not everybody's very far along this journey. So for those who might be listening who are thinking about modernizing and optimizing their financial operations, what one piece of advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I would say, one piece of advice that has kind of a couple angles to it. I would say first and foremost, you gotta separate the kind of attachment to the way it's always been, with solution providers like ourselves that are taking unique and different approaches to this world, with the tools and the technologies that are available. I'd say come into this journey with an open mind, really thinking holistically and not thinking in the kind of siloed, fragmented way that has gotten folks into trouble historically, that has led to these situations where people have stitched together solutions, no data continuity, no process flow continuity. So step back, detach from what has been, and look at things holistically and think with the end in mind. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about the here and now. The here and now is certainly important, but really spend the time kind of thinking with that end in mind, and then working backwards from that in conjunction with the right solution provider to map out, essentially create a roadmap, from where you are to where you want to be.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it is a given in most instances that relying on the status quo is really not the best path forward. So, and I say this as somebody who I'm a change agent. Every relationship that I come into is one where my clients are embarking upon change. It's hard, but holding on to that status quo in highly competitive, quick moving business times, and then with the advent of AI and generative AI solutions, I mean, there's a real danger in relying on the status quo today.
Yeah, and I would add to that there's also this kind of mindset of now's not the right time. We've got this going on, we've got that going on, and what I always say to folks is, if now's not the right time, it's not going to be any better time as your business continues to grow and scale, and the challenges get more complex. And so it always feels kind of like an easy out to say, maybe we'll kick the can down the road. Maybe we'll address this later. It only makes it more difficult. So, the time is now. And I don't think there's much that's more important in terms of being able to, build something that's going to help you be a sustainable business that's going to be able to grow without, getting stifled and becoming a victim of your own growth.
Yeah, I have very salient points. I will share this. I was looking at your website when I was preparing for this conversation, and one of the things that really spoke to me was the leading with values that seems to be kind of baked into Corcentric's DNA. And there's a statement on your website that says, kind of our values, and they're pretty simple: do the right thing, embrace and drive change, which is exactly what we've been talking about, be empowered, and be relentlessly focused on the customer. Matt, I would say that based upon the conversation that we've had the last 25 or 30 minutes, that's exactly what you and the team at Corcentric are doing. I applaud you.
Well, I appreciate that. We try to live our core values every single day. We're talking about them every day. We're recognizing people that are demonstrating those core values every day, and we're proud to talk about them with our customers and our prospects, because we truly believe we live them out.
Well, and I think, that is a driver of decisions on, who I'm going to work with, what vendors I'm going to work with. So I really liked seeing that. As I said, it resonated with me on your website. Matt Clark, President and CEO of Corcentric, thank you so much for joining me today. CFOs, finance pros, procurement pros, all play an outsized role in business success today. The advice and the insights that you've shared have been incredibly valuable. Really appreciate you making time for me today. To our viewers and listening audience, this is Shelly Kramer from Kramer&Co Research. Thank you so much for joining us today for our coverage of enterprise and emerging tech news. And if you've not yet hit that subscribe button, we'd love for you to do so. And we'll see you back here next time.